Pat Sheehan was, according to her fans, a version of Marilyn Monroe and Rita Hayworth, and like those two, she had one of the toughest love lives ever. Imagine her dating both father and son. How Pat Sheehan ended up in a father-son love triangle. Pat Sheehan was sexy, and there is no doubt about that. The model and actress's sexiness radiated so much that she became television's Marilyn Monroe and the blonde Rita Hayworth. People compared these iconic women to Pat Sheehan, but unlike them, she wasn't any studio product. Pat always stood out and continued to do so all her life. She was the first Playmate to be in a tie for Playboy's Playmate of the Month. Also, she got a TV contract from being a model and a Playboy, but she wasn't just a pretty face. Catherine Crosby described the actress as the warmest and friendliest person she had ever interacted with. It went on like that. With her beautiful hair and radiant smile, her career path as a model was set in stone, but she didn't get arrogant or like a diva because of it. But she was innocent too. Like most other Hollywood stars, the actress liked pleasure and dated quite a number of men. They don't compare her to Rita Hayworth and Marilyn for nothing. After Rita divorced Edward, she dated and married Orson Welles, who she referred to as the great love of her life. Great love or not, she and Orson divorced, and she hooked up with a Playboy prince, Prince Ali Khan, and the two married. But it also didn't last long. Hayworth lived some of her best life with Ali as she enjoyed the extravagance of royal life. She divorced Ali to marry a musician. Overall, true love eluded her. For Marilyn it was the same, if not worse, with rumours of her losing her life because she dated two powerful men whose names may or may not rhyme with Kennedy. Marilyn married James Dougherty first when she was pretty young, and like most young love, their relationship crashed and burned most spectacularly. But Marilyn was a lover girl, and she married baseball star Joe DiMaggio, but within a year of marriage they ended things. The third is the charm, right? But not for Marilyn. Her third marriage to Arthur Miller also ended in divorce. He would be the last person she married, but maybe she would have married again if she hadn't died at 36. The actress dated several men, including Frank Sinatra, and she had this in common with Pat. It turned out that the old blue-eyes singer had a type. He liked his women blonde and sexy. Frank Sinatra wasn't the only notable name that Pat Sheehan had relationships with. The model had a thing with Eddie Fisher, the iconic singer that sold millions of records. Sexy Pat also dated Bob Neal, the millionaire, and he was her rebound guy after another iconic relationship of hers, which we would talk about soon. Then there was her relationship with Rod Taylor, the Australian actor, but Pat wasn't just tearing through men. She tried to have permanent relationships too, but like the women people have compared her to, these relationships didn't work out. Want to find out about her marriages? You are at the right place. Patricia Ann Sheehan was born on September 7, 1931 in San Francisco, California, US, to Arthur E. Sheehan Sr. and Gladys A. Larson. Don't let her sunny attitude and radiance fool you. An early tragedy marked Pat's childhood. Her brother Arthur was drafted into the US Army in 1942 for the Second World War, and he rose to the rank of Staff Sergeant. However, while his plane flew over Germany, the Germans shot it down, and so Pat would be without her brother, but like the rest of her family, she continued to live. With her beauty and sexiness, fame looked for Pat, and in 1949, when she was 18, she entered and won her hometown's Miss Milkmaid pageant. From there, she took off. She began to enter other pageants, and by the following year she won Miss San Francisco. While her beauty and elegance were there, what gave her an advantage in that competition was her impactful monologue. Her showing at the San Francisco pageant brought her a lot of recognition and a Gensler Lee diamond ring. Winning Miss San Francisco made her even more popular than she was, and as she received her award, she flew to Santa Cruz, California. In California, she made a guest appearance on Jim Davis's KCBS radio show, and she also entered the 1951 Miss California pageant. However, this time she wouldn't be winning. She came 6th. Such was showbiz. No one was promised an easy path or continued dominance. The model married George von Douglas-Ittu that same year after the two dated for a while. She also gave birth to her son, Franz Nicholas Gregory von Douglas-Ittu. While she managed her home life, the actress also nurtured her modelling career. She modelled for different magazines like TV Fan, People Today and TV Guide. She had little talent for acting and also did some TV work. Notable among those works in the early 1960s was the comedy series The Colgate Comedy Hour and Queen for a Day, which some critics had issues with. So the Queen for a Day show aired both on TV and on the radio. The show was one of the first of its kind, and it introduced the American audience to shows that gave away big prizes at the end of each episode. The show's participants and audience were usually some women, and the show introduced the participants to the audience while the host, Jack Bailey, began to interview them. At the peak of the interview, Jack would ask why the participant wanted to win the prize, and they would state their reasons, which are usually emotional. Most of the reasons were generally related to paying enormous hospital bills and therapy, or getting care for a child. Other times the reason for wanting to win could be less emotional. For instance, for some people they wanted to buy a refrigerator or a washing machine. The show was a sob fest, and the audience had to rate the stories by applauding using an applause meter. The higher the meter, the better chances of getting a gift. The story with the most score on the applause meter got the gift. Despite the sadness that clung to the show's theme, there was fashion commentary that played in between the commercials. So, critics went after the show because it exploited people's sadness for views, and it's a shame that Pat was part of this, but a girl had to make a living, we guess. Howard Hughes spotted her and immediately added her to the list of actresses he had in his studio. Howard wasn't the kind of man to let a pretty woman go past him. Betty Davis was one of the women he managed to seduce. He met Betty during a function and was different from the other men Betty had seen that night. The actress wore a low-cut gown that showed off ample cleavage. However, Hughes was more interested in her face than the other men staring at her chest. Throughout the night he hovered around Davis, and before she knew it, she was on his bed. Davis was married at the time, but it didn't matter. She was with a millionaire, and the couple lived without worrying about consequences. Being with a millionaire didn't always mean he would spend if he didn't feel like it. Davis's husband found out that his wife was fooling around, but he had no problem with that. He only wanted money. Betty told her millionaire boyfriend about the situation, and he just ignored her. Howard left her alone to sort herself out. Davis had to take a loan to settle her husband and get a divorce. It didn't even matter to Howard that she got pregnant for him and had to get rid of it. Knowing the kind of man Howard was and how he targeted Jane Greer for not willing to sleep with him, one could guess that he must have tried to seduce Pat on account of her beauty, but there aren't rumours or any hint that the two had anything together. Howard cast the actress in The French Line, but her role wasn't spectacular. She was just one of the models on screen, and Howard did like his models and actresses to be sexy. When he cast Jean Russell in his film The Outlaw, he focused on the sexy actress and her bosom. The result of the film was so sexy that when the producer submitted it to Hollywood Production Code Administration, they judged it for being too sexy and didn't allow it to get to the cinemas. However, Howard had his way, manipulating the public and the Hollywood Production Code Administration into watching his film, so he campaigned against his film, and as a result the audience wanted to see it, and they did 3 years after he made the film. Due to the public demand, the film made quite a lot of money at the box office. Apart from The French Line, Howard put her in Son of Sinbad, where she had the glamorous role of a harem girl, typical Hughes. In most of the films she featured in, none of them really challenged her. She just played random characters and was lucky to get any credits. Eventually the actress divorced her husband. After her divorce, the actress would go on to appear in a series of TV shows like the NBC Comedy Hour, The Chevy Show, Milton Berle Show, Blondie, Matinee Theatre, and Texaco Star Theatre. To improve her acting ability, the actor even got an acting coach, Agnes Moorehead, and a vocal coach, Meredith Wilson. She was loved by her co-stars too. Pat also got gigs with Playboy, and she wasn't just some bit player. She was the magazine's co-playmate of October 1958 with Mara Corday. Her centrefold was glorious, with Sam Wu making the model's elegance come out. The actress was still open to the idea of love and marriage, and then she met Bing Crosby. Bing had just lost his first wife, Dixie Ali, to ovarian cancer, and he fell hard for Sheehan. The two began to date, and their relationship blossomed. Bing was devoted to Sheehan despite him being way older than her. When he went to San Francisco for his show, he always visited Sheehan for them to go on a date. Eventually he proposed, and she said no. While she didn't mind dating him, she couldn't marry him because of the age difference. But there was a Crosby that was for the actress. Dennis Crosby. While Dennis was in the army and Bing pulled some strings to get him out, Bing introduced him to the actress. We suspect that he fell for her, but didn't move on her out of respect for his dad. It would be an awkward love triangle, so he waited for when his dad was out of the picture and began to date the actress. One of their earliest dates was when they went to the Cy Devore Saul Meadows costume party together. The two planned to marry, with Bing giving his blessing despite his feelings for Sheehan. Also, Sheehan's mother blessed the marriage, but there was one little problem. The couple wanted to marry in the Good Shepherd Church in Beverly Hills, or the Roman Catholic Church in Palm Springs. However, as they're divorced with a child, for the priest to wed Pat and Dennis, the first marriage must have been invalid. Eventually they changed the church, married at Gretna Green Wedding Chapel, and ate at the restaurant next to them. But they soon had their first scandal as a couple. Dennis hasn't been honest with his wife. Just a month after their marriage, a woman, Marilyn Miller Scott, filed a paternity suit against Dennis, claiming he was her daughter's father. As the suit was going on, Dennis began a family with Pat and acted like a jerk toward her. One of his jerk moments would be when he went to a family gathering while his wife was sick, but he made up for that when he formally adopted his wife's son with her first husband. Both of them would have 3 children of their own, but their marriage wasn't blissful. Things got worse when the court determined that Dennis was the father of Marilyn Miller Scott's daughter Denise. Denise would also become a star in her own right as she became an actress. Eventually Dennis and Pat would separate before divorcing, with the model accusing her husband of being irresponsible. She also claimed that he was cruel to her both mentally and physically. Dennis wasn't bothered by Pat's accusation, and after a while he remarried, and later on in his life his demons got the better of him, as he took his own life. After her second marriage, Pat knew marriage wasn't for her, and she didn't remarry. She focused on work until she died of a heart attack after initially surviving cancer. The actress lived a somewhat pleasant life, even if she had her ups and downs. But who doesn't? But wait, the excitement doesn't end here. Buckle up and get ready for our next video that dives into the extraordinary journey of Donald O'Connor. Discover how this dynamic entertainer outshone Mickey Rooney and defied Hollywood's stereotyping.